STARRCADE 1996, the WCW's version of WrestleMania. They made a mistake, really, with STARRCADE, which was a name coined by Dusty Rhodes, but which doesn't have the word wrestling in it in any fashion.
No.
So,
and it just makes it sound like an arcade that you would go to. Are you coming down to STARRCADE? It sounds like barcade. It sounds like where you drink craft ale and play Pac-Man.
You would never associate it with wrestling if you were someone normal. And I think, the word WrestleMania, you suddenly realise when you look at STARRCADE just how good Vince McMahon was at coining things that really, really worked. And that got in the public psyche. I mean, it could have been called, as we talked on the very first show, the Colossal Tussle.
Colossal Tussle. But at least there's a tussle in there.
Yeah. And McMahon looked at that and he went, that is not going to cut the mustard. And you can see that with things like STARRCADE and Halloween Havoc. They just forget to mention the reason you're there. There's a lot of good WCW in this pay-per-view, but you can still see a lot of bad decisions, poor things that ultimately really would cost them in the years to come.
The first three matches are fucking brilliant, pretty much.
Completely.
And also Roddy Piper in WCW. I don't think I've seen Piper in WCW really before in this run. Do you know what I mean?
Totally. At this point, he's had a part-time career basically since about 1987. He's had returns to the WWF, but he's also been making films. But at this point, WCW, with the advent of the NWO, have found themselves in a position where they've got Hulk Hogan, who is again the biggest star in the industry, and they decide to bring back Roddy Piper. Piper signs for a huge deal. He doesn't, he's still working effectively a part-time contract. But one of the things about Piper that's really interesting, I've just been reading his autobiography, which is a mixed bag.
They always are.
It's very thin on detail. And look, I know it's not for WrestleMania to start criticising people making simple errors, but
especially not after that Rick Rude video that somehow upset everyone.
I mean. The problem with the Piper book is it's got misspellings for Arnold Skoland, the manager, and it's obviously whoever has been talking to Piper. And Piper does mention quite early on that he doesn't really read or write, which is a worry. And whoever's written it has basically heard these things and not bothered then to go online and go, what is that name? There's a lot of stuff where Piper sort of mentions, I performed in front of 80,000 people at SummerSlam 92 in Wembley Stadium. And actually what he did was he came out and he played the bagpipes. I mean, it wasn't, it's all a little bit misleading. But in that, Piper does talk about a fascinating thing, which is he basically said, in about 1984, I made the decision that I would never lose. And I just would never be pinned. I would be okay about losing by disqualification, but I'm never going to have pinfall losses because that will hurt me and the promoters will move on to someone else. And if I can just refuse to ever be pinned, I will always keep my heat. So he has done pretty much that throughout his career. There are some notable pinfall losses. One to Bret Hart at WrestleMania 8, which, great match, but it was rare to see Piper be pinned. And what they've done here is Hogan has said, I tell you what, there's someone, who we should bring back. He's not been around for a while, and I've never actually beaten him, and I'd like to get my win back. It's Rowdy Roddy Piper. So 12 years after the two of them spearhead the sort of rock and wrestling just explosion in WWF, Piper comes back with a really, really simple concept, which is him saying, you might have beaten everyone, you might be 6'8", you might be on top of the hill, but there's one man you've never beaten, and that's Rowdy Roddy Piper. I love that as booking. That's just good, clean, simple, compelling booking.
Which was massively undercut by Bobby the Brain Heenan at the start of the show by going, Hulk Hogan, you've never beaten Rowdy Roddy Piper, and you're not going to do it again. It's like, don't say again. Don't add in the word again.
No.
It sounds like it's been done before. You've undercut everything you said there.
Yeah.
You've never defeated Rowdy Roddy Piper. Well, tonight here in Nashville, guess what? You're not going to do it again.
Gentlemen, we have seen over the past couple of weeks...
Reading the book as well, Piper is full of I am, one of the greatest. I'm one of the two icons in this sport, and he doesn't even mention Hogan. Hogan is mentioned in passing in the book, which seems absolutely crazy considering the two of them were linked together for generations, really. And certainly at the first WrestleMania were two of the key performers in it. But he does think of himself as being one of the great promos, and I think he is. And then later he isn't, but doesn't realise. We do see some promos from him in here. We'll get to those. But what WCW have really sort of found here, and you've hit on this, Pete, those opening matches are revolutionary. They are absolutely brilliant, taking the cream of worldwide talent. And the fans might not really know who Ultimo Dragon is. They might not know who Akira Hokuto is. But once they get in the ring, the fans go, that was incredible. And all of that is basically sitting in front of the thing that draws the ticket sales and the big pay-per-view numbers, and those are huge marquee matchups like Hulk Hogan and Roddy Piper. The 1997, I think, is probably WCW's greatest year in ring and in terms of just exploding and becoming, for periods during those late 90s, certainly in terms of television ratings, the number one wrestling company in the world.
Hollywood Hulk Hogan.
Piper! I'm gonna break you in half!
Versus Roddy Piper.
No surrender! No retreat!
At STARRCADE, the granddaddy of them all.
It did well. It was $113,000 of ticket sales, an attendance of just 9,000. Tony Schiavone proudly announces right at the start, "Oh, they've been out scalping tickets outside the venue today." Really changed. Where scalpers used to be seen as we are the hot ticket. The idea that you'd sort of like open up a BBC football coverage and just go, "There's so many scalpers out there today, selling people, things on phones that aren't real." Well done. The crowd also are hot and they're young, and every time we've seen WCW up to this point, the crowd are
old.
They're mainly farmers, lots of sort of dungarees, lots of straw hats, and suddenly they're all just bros. They're really leery, beery, shouty bros, and WCW are suddenly really feeling the benefits of that NWO angle that happened in the middle of 1996. Everything has clicked into place by the end of the year.
Hi there, Pete Donaldson here from WrestleMania. Just a quick note, please like the video that you're watching right now, but also subscribe as well. Also, head on over for our Christmas WrestleMania shows. 12 special episodes of the WrestleMania Patreon over at patreon.com/WrestleMania. We've got newsletters in there. We've got special Cardi Boys unboxing videos for some terrible WWE cards very soon as well. So join us over at patreon.com/WrestleMania for all of that. Good, be good. Merry Christmas!
It was the WCW Women's Championship Finals. Akira Hokuto with her husband Kensuke Sasaki and sort of obliged contractually Sonny Ono versus Medusa,
who's basically been introduced to a federation that has no women.
Yes.
She's got no one to fight, bless him. And, Akira Hokuto
started, people say, but I'm aware a lot of my pronunciation is basically from 1990s American announcers, and the one thing we know about them is they don't do their homework, and it's, Akira Hokuto is what I would say, and I think most sort of wrestling people would, but when she comes out, Pete, in that diamond gas mask with an ice white lion's mane.
It looks like something out of Mad Mix. I can't even say Mad Mix. Mad Max.
It was.
Bobby says she looks like Dolly Parton. It looks amazing.
It's simply wonderful, isn't it? And there is that funny thing when she comes out, you can't see her, but you immediately go, that's Japanese. It's,
yeah.
She comes in this diamond gas mask, and you're just like, they are out on a limb as to what they kind of go, that's what I'm wearing today. Absolutely thrilling.
They bring these stars over and they sort of decide to do stuff, and because they're kind of like on a borrow, they've been lent to somewhere else, I think they can push their ticket a bit more.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that's not how she looked there, but if the WWF had the choice, she'd be coming out to fucking was it shamisen, fucking Japanese guitars and and a fucking
the music from International Karate Plus. There's weirdly, she's called Medusa, which I think is one of the great female wrestling names. Medusa, strong, violent women, who are anti-men, and I think there's something great about that as reclaiming that as a symbol of female power. She didn't do that. It was a shortened version of the phrase "made in the USA."
Oh no! I didn't even clock that. That's awful.
She took
awful.
that.
That's what are they doing?
And I had a look at this, and I was like, that can't be true because it's too good a name. And then I looked into her real life, and she's been married 3 times. And the 3 people that she's married, their professions have been professional wrestler, NFL player, and now military serviceman, which are the 3 most star-spangled American jobs that you could possibly have. The wrestler that she was married to was Hot Stuff Eddie Gilbert. They were married in, I think, the 80s. And again, one of those guys who we never see on any of the shows that we watch, but was very influential, both as a heel and a booker throughout that period until his early death. I was sort of thinking, she would have to sort of marry a president to be that sort of thing of going, I have married every unique American job, maybe
or an
a
apple
meth
pie.
An apple pie.
A meth D.
Yeah. But then I thought Eddie Gilbert he probably did a little bit of meth dealing. I mean, I can't imagine that he didn't. She goes to WCW in 1991, joins the Dangerous Alliance, is sort of a sidekick for Rick Rude. And in 1993, the WWF come calling and they repackage her. So they don't want to call her Medusa. She's already trademarked that name. So Vince McMahon gives her the character Alundra Blaze. They created the WWF Women's title. They revived it effectively for her. But like we will see in a minute, they had no one else for her to take on. So she took on some of the old veterans, but they didn't look, if you like, cosmetically that pleasing at a period where that sort of thing seemed more important than ever. So Medusa said, why don't we bring in Bull Nakano? So Bull Nakano was brought from Japan to the WWE. And then they brought over their next big challenger, who was a woman called Bertha Faye, a woman called Rhonda Singh. And she had also been working in Japan. She was a Canadian. She was known as Monster Ripper. And the WWF decided she was too frightening. They basically went, she looks like a powerhouse. She looks like she could beat up the guys. So they gave her a sort of horrible, she was a big lady, and they dressed her up as a schoolgirl. And it was just, she had sort of like candy-coloured ribbons in her hair, and it looked a bit sort of pathetic, and it was like she was sort of, I don't know, there was something unsavoury about the whole thing, which seemed like it was diminishing her. That just didn't, it didn't sit right. She loses her title to Bertha Faye. She then sort of regains it, and it's just at the point where the WWF are just going, you know what? This isn't working. We just haven't got any competition. So they basically say to her, we're having financial troubles, so we're going to basically release you from your contract. And Medusa then resurfaces in WCW, and in one of the key moments of that early sort of growth of the promotional sort of war, she dumps the WWF Women's title, which they hadn't asked for back, into a bin live on Nitro. And wow. She is an important character in that respect. That would basically see her blacklisted by the WWF for the next 20 years. In WCW would once again feud with Sherry Martel. They would once again bring Bull Nakano back in for her to do, and then they introduce the WCW Women's title. They have a tournament. This is the final. And Pete, I mean, it's just so unlike all other WCW matches you see involving Japanese talent. Because in this, the Japanese person in Akira Hokuto is full of charisma, and it's the American who is a bit bland and a bit sort of like, oh, you're a bit out of place. Yeah, you're not really clicking with the crowd. And they let Akira Hokuto have an incredibly dominant performance. Medusa gets to do virtually nothing. There's a great bit where Medusa does a sort of DDT on Akira Hokuto, and Akira Hokuto doesn't take it very well. And you can see Medusa with that sort of Japanese mentality. As she sits behind her, she goes to smack Akira Hokuto on the back of the head, like out of frustration and annoyance, and she whiffs sniffs it. She doesn't get near her. And I was thinking she must be sitting there, poor Medusa, absolutely fuming about how badly this is going for her. But
I just love the fact that they brought in, is it Lee Marshall for this one?
yeah.
He's got a beautiful kind of like molassesy kind of voice. That
chocolate-voiced Lee Marshall.
Two of the all-time super legends of this sport. Curt Hennig, now of the NWO, and probably with his running around pal and boyhood friend, Rick Rude, will meet this man, the British Bulldog. And Bulldog, I know what you're thinking. You don't care if Rude's there, Hennig, somebody's getting hurt in this one.
Someone's getting hurt in this one, especially you, Curt Hennig. And you, Rick Rude, you want to slap some handcuffs on the British Bulldog and try to stop me from me getting hold of Curt Hennig? It's not going to work this time in Denver, Colorado. I'm going to knock you a mile high, Curt Hennig, because that's where you belong, is a mile high in the sky. I'm going to knock you there, because you know and I know that I'm the better man in the squared circle. And I proved it on Monday Nitro.
Beautiful, but which contrasted entirely with Hakuto just kicking 7 bells out of Medusa, basically. It was really, really good stuff. It's really powerful, really, really quick, really... Half these matches just didn't seem like they belonged in this era of WCW.
Not at all. It's absolutely right. This does feel like it's out of time. There's a couple of matches that do come up where you just go, I can't believe this was happening in 96. It just doesn't make any sense at all. I really enjoyed it. There's a really good arrogant pin at the end by Hakuto, and it really gets her over. Hakuto would go on to defeat Medusa again at the Great American Bash in 1997, and that was the last time Hakuto ever appeared in WCW, and the Women's Championship was never mentioned again. She was the only ever WCW Women's Champion, which is a strange one, but Medusa had a nice follow-up to her career in that she basically, in 2001, she had been working as a trainer in WCW's power plant. She'd worked with some of the up-and-coming female performers like Nora Greenwald, who would later be known as Molly Holly. And when the WWE bought WCW, she just thought, well, there's absolutely no way they are ever going to employ me. I put that title in the bin live on a Nitro. They detest me. So she returned to her other love, which was monster truck racing, where she became quite a sort of like big star in the monster truck racing circuit. This woman loves America, Pete, in a way that none of us will ever understand. And she also released a CD of songs in Japanese in the mid-90s, which I'd never heard of until now, and I really, really want to hear.
I'd lovely to. We should find them and somehow translate them. That'd be interesting.
And re-sing them.
してごらん何かが聞こえる静かな足音それ